I like getting high. Actually, that might come across badly. My name is Robbie Philips. I'm 28, and I'm a professional climber. I've been hanging off rock faces most of my life. I can't get out of my head that maybe I could have done something more productive with my life. You know what I mean? Maybe I could have learned a language. Heck, I could have learned 3 the amount of time I spent climbing. Why climbing? Well, honestly, for me, climbing is so freeing. On the wall, I make the decisions, no one else. Of course, there might be up there a partner who holds my rope, or a friend who spots me at the bottom in case I fall off. But at the end of the day, it's my decision to pull on. It's my body that moves up the wall, and it's my mind that keeps things together when things get tough. But it's not just that. I love the variety of challenge that climbing offers, because climbing encompasses a vast sea of potential landscapes, from tiny boulders to monolithic towers, from indoor climbing centers to snowy mountains. Climbing is an adventure, and you, the climber, are the hero. There are a myriad of paths that you could take, but irrespective of the one you choose, the same principles, the same rules, the same challenges apply. Climbing poses a question: can it be done? And it is the climber's job to find out. Something I learned a long time ago is that no 2 climbs are alike. You can have physical climbs that require you to explode dynamically between fingernail-sized edges. And you can have technical climbs that require incredible skill and balance to stand on footholds no bigger than the head of a matchstick. But the one thing that holds it all together, the one pillar that without it the rest would not stand strong, is the mind. Because climbing is a mental game. And the one thing that holds climbers back more than anything else is fear. And it's not always fear associated with danger or hurting yourself like you think, but sometimes it's fear associated with failure. And fear leads to hesitance, which, as we all know, prevents us from performing at our best. And we can see this throughout all of life's activities, from sporting pursuits to academic work. A great example of this is a student walking into an exam hall for the final test of their academic career will be experiencing the same anxieties, the same stresses, the same fears that a climber experiences on the wall. Now, in my life as a climber, I've experienced fear in many forms, but today I thought I'd speak of 3 times when fear crept into my performance and how I dealt with it at the time. The first fear I want to speak of is fear of the unknown. That is when we don't know what's ahead. Now, it was a number of years ago now, I was climbing in Switzerland on the north face of the Eiger. The topo, a handwritten map of our climb, had directed us this far, but what we saw ahead looked different to what was described in the topo. And I'll admit, it looked long, hard, and slightly terrifying. We stood on this ledge wondering what to do next. Basically came up with the conclusion that the only route to success was up there. We'd either have to commit or go down. Now, on any other day on any other rock face, this decision would be a lot easier. But this is the north face of the Eiger. Going down isn't exactly easy. Going up, well, I was looking up there and I could see clouds swirling above, threatening to turn to something much worse. After careful deliberation, we decided to continue. So I geared up, took a deep breath, and went for it. Every positive handhold I grabbed was a gift, and every new piece of gear I put in to protect me from a fall was a relief. I slowly moved upwards, uncertain what the next few meters would reveal. Would I find more handholds, or would I find more gear, or would this line take us somewhere we don't want to be and can't retreat from? These questions rushed through my head, but I didn't make any rash judgments. I just slowly moved upwards, carefully assessing each moment as it passed. I thought about the climbing ahead. I thought about the gear I'd placed. I thought about how difficult it might be to down climb from a section if I went the wrong way. You see, in this example, I've got a healthy respect of my environment whilst using the knowledge of past experience to move me upwards. Fear, in this respect, is not my enemy. Fear keeps me safe. Without fear, I might go boldly off into the unknown without good reason. And it is actually the knowledge of past experience that allows me to make good judgments. Eventually, I spotted a bolt, a fixed piece of solid protection on the wall, and a sign that we were going in the right direction. My confidence grew, my fear subsided, and I felt happy knowing that I'd made the right decision. Now, it's important to note that in this example, I made a judgment and it worked in our favor. But there have been plenty of other times when I've chosen not to continue climbing. And it's just as much of a skill knowing when to back off as it is a healthy balance of fear and experience-based confidence that allows us to make good judgments and keeps us safe in the mountains. The second fear I want to speak of is not so much fear of the unknown, more so fear of the known. That is when we know the risks at hand. Now, in climbing, we often like to practice climbs close to our technical limit under safer conditions with the rope securing us from above, called a top rope. This allows us to practice and rehearse the moves over and over and over again until we're so comfortable with the moves that when we finally go for the lead from the ground, it really reduces the likelihood of us taking a fall. Of course, just like the student walking to the exam hall for the final test, it's still possible to choke at the very last minute due to fear. And the closer we get to our technical limits, the more likely a fall becomes. And that is when the mental side of the game really does become super important. Now, I had an experience of this on a climb near my home called Peak Technique. It's a very aptly named climb because it requires near perfect execution to ensure success. It's also renowned as being a very dangerous climb because if you make a mistake, if you fall off, there's a high probability that you're going to hurt yourself. If you watch this video, you would notice that my feet are pointed, my body is leaned close into the wall, and I'm very hesitant. Basically, I'm embracing the fear, but not in a healthy way as I would normally, not in a healthy way as I did in the Eiger. Not this time. This fear is debilitating, and this fear prevents me from committing to the moves that would ensure my success. Basically, what happens is I fall off, all the gear rips, and I hit the ground. Now, you'd be happy to know that actually I was unhurt, just really badly winded. It was a lucky escape. Now, the normal reaction to this would be, right, let's not do that again. But the climber in me that thrives on the challenge was, I guess you could say, frustrated. I was angry with myself because I'd failed to control my emotions. I'd allowed them to get the better of me, and I didn't have a handle on things. I'd made a really bad judgment. Now, I wanted to prove to myself that I could do better in round 2. That's right, there's a round 2. And it actually did take 3 years to work up the courage to finally go back for round 2. I finally did go back last summer, and finally went back to the crag, finally went back for a second attempt at the climb. This time things were different. It was a beautifully sunny day, there was a cool breeze in the air, and I was there with a friend who was both there to support and belay me. And this time I decided I wanted to set a top rope up first to practice the moves. I practiced and rehearsed every hand placement, every foot placement, every body position, to the point that I honestly thought I could probably do the thing blindfolded. I didn't try that, though. And then, when I felt confident, I walked to the base of the climb, tied in for the lead, and went for it. Now, the climb's not very big. It only takes about 30 seconds to get to this horizontal break, at which point you stand there, looking upwards at the 5-meter finale, at the end of which we'd either see you at the top victorious or at the base of the wall, pretty broken. Now, it only takes 10 seconds to climb this 5-meter finale. 10 seconds, which doesn't seem very long, but that's enough time for anything to happen and a lot to go wrong. And when the consequences of failing are so serious, there cannot even be a shred of inner doubt in your mind to set you off track. 10 seconds feels like an eternity at times like these. When I stood on top, it was one of the happiest moments in my climbing career, for no other reason than it overcome such a mental block. So the main thing to take away from this was that there was a difference between how I managed fear on the Eiger versus how I dealt with it on Peak Technique. The main difference on the Eiger was that I was constantly dealing with things as they happened, assessing risks at every turn. Whereas on peak technique. All the assessing had been done prior to leaving the ground. It was, in fact, the preparation that went into the climb, everything from the rehearsal of the moves, to the time of day, to the choice of partner, that allowed me to focus more of my efforts, more of my energy, more of my concentration on the climbing at hand, which would then, of course, allow me to have a much higher chance of success. So the third and final fear I want to speak of is not one generally associated with danger, but more so when we have to perform to a high technical level to succeed, is, of course, the fear of failure. So there was a number of years ago, I was climbing the Dolomites. We were there to try one of the hardest rock climbs in Dolomites, on one of the big north faces of the Trecime de Lavaredo. Now, we'd been there for a couple of weeks already. We've been having some problems with the crux pitch. That is the hardest pitch of climbing on the wall. And this is the last day of the trip, the last chance for any success, in fact. The climbing was hard because the handholds were small, the angle of the wall was steep, and the footholds were very poor, not to mention the fact the whole wall was soaking wet, making slipping off very easy. I realized that to have any success in this climb, I'd have to move fast and efficient, and I couldn't afford to make a single mistake, not to mention I'd have to stand on these little wet, smeary footholds with 400 meters of air below my feet, which wasn't exactly inspiring me with confidence. Now, that wasn't the limiting factor in this performance. I wasn't scared of injuring myself. I knew the falls were safe. The fear was actually a fear of failure. I just wanted to succeed. I didn't want to fail. I realized that in order to succeed in this climb, I'd have to be confident, I'd have to move fast, I'd have to not make a single mistake. The performance would have to be perfect. And so, in order to do this, usually you have to either keep a cool and collected head, or you can do something else, which is what I did, which is basically unleash the animal within. And actually, I did two things in particular. The first thing I did was I embraced failure as a possibility, and in doing so, that relieved a lot of the pressure from having to succeed. Now, I like to use an example for myself when I'm climbing. I call it the underdog. So the underdog has everything to gain and nothing to lose, whereas the top dog, the champion of the day, has everything to lose and not as much to gain. So in my mind, for these high pressure performances, I have to become the underdog in my mind to try and relieve that pressure. Of course, the fear of failure is always there, it's always around, and in particular on those dicier, trickier moves, the fear of failure can creep back in. And for those particular moves, as I'm committing to the move, I just unleash a scream. Now that does sound flipping bonkers, isn't it? Just like some guy screaming up the wall. But what I find is that the scream is my confidence vocalized. It blocks out negativity, and it gives me power. I liken it to a tennis player smashing a ball down the court at their opponent with a grunt. We've all seen Wimbledon. We've all seen how that works. And I kind of think it's a similar thing. The emotion here is confidence, and with it, I can conquer much harder climbing than without. I can also mitigate fear on the wall because I've already embraced failure as a possibility. Therefore, I don't fear it anymore. On that note, I don't advise anybody screaming here during the next exam. So for the last 13 years, I've been honing my skills as a climber. But inadvertently, I've been honing my skills for life too, because fear is a natural part of life, be it in our work, in academia, or in sports. I think it's important that we think objectively about our fears, that we understand what our fears are if we want to be able to manage them effectively. I've basically come to the conclusion that climbing, as in life, is a game of orchestrated emotions. If we want to perform at our best, we need to be in tune with our emotions. And we also need to be able to utilize them effectively if we want to perform well near our limit and to keep us aware of the risks around us. Thank you.